Hey guys, it's J19 brought to you in our video, and today we got some more information for Final Fantasy XVI. An interview with producer Yoshi P and his team on creating a blockbuster RPG, which is Final Fantasy 16. I figure, you know what, this looks interesting. I kind of read a little bit of this. We're gonna go through this whole interview, see what I got to say, what they have to say about it, and psych us up even more for Final Fantasy 16. So keep it here. If you guys want more Final Fantasy 16, feel free to like, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notification so you know if I won't go live or upload my next video. With that said, let's get right into this. We speak to Final Fantasy 16 producer Yoshida, the director, art director Menagawa, and then localization director Koji Fox on what to expect from the upcoming game. So here we go. Great shot at Clive. Let's get right into it. Just a few weeks ago, Final Fantasy 16 launches for PS5 on June 22nd, 2023, in less than a month. You'll be taking hero Clive Rossfield on a roller coaster adventure full of action, emotion, and utterly spectacular icon battles. Pre-order Final Fantasy 16 now, so if you guys pre-order the game, this thing's gonna be a blast. If you got a PS5 or just looking to get a PS5, maybe this would be a good game for you. Now, get back at it. We recently had the opportunity to sit down with the game's producer, Yoshida, Menagawa, and Koji Fox to talk about the challenges and pressures and joy of creating the latest entry in Final Fantasy series. Our discussion ranged from making Clive one of the most fun to play heroes in the series to the great challenges caused by a humble Moogle. We started at the beginning of the project itself. Great shot of Clive. I love that. How do you arrive on the concept of Final Fantasy 16? Yoshida. Well, the company approached me and asked whether my team, Creative Business Unit 3, could make a Final Fantasy 16 as the next installment in the Final Fantasy series. We started working on the concepts for the game at that point. Having played Final Fantasy XIV for a long time and having an opportunity to speak with so many journalists and players around the world, I wanted to create a game that would appeal to a broader audience, something a wide range of gamers from different generations would play. To achieve that goal, our initial concepts were to make an action-based game and tell a more mature story. Which, by the way, guys, best idea, because this is looking to be a sick roller coaster ride of a lifetime. I can't wait. This could battle Final Fantasy VII as the greatest Final Fantasy game of all time, in my honest opinion. But it's getting there. Let's keep going. In this game, you play almost entirely as Clive Rossfield. Yoshida-san, yes, there's a reason for that. Final Fantasy 16 is the first real action game in the series with absolutely no turn-based or command-based elements. Because we made a decision to go in this direction, we wanted to ensure that players who aren't confident in action games could still enjoy the game. That's why it initially didn't go well. We initially didn't go with a complicated control scheme or a system that involves switching multiple characters in real time. Instead, we just asked the player to focus on controlling Clive. Which, to be honest with you guys, I think it makes the perfect sense because it's going to be kind of chaotic. Like, you're trying to control Clive and all of a sudden you got to switch over to another character. And Final Fantasy VII Remake done it right because you can pause the action if you need to, right? Or you can just do a bunch of buttons. But this is more like complicated. And for everybody to try to control 3 or 4 party members at once, it's going to be a little too much. Unless you're really skilled at those type of games. So I see why they done this. It was all made sure that players who aren't skilled at action games can still play the game with 100% satisfaction, and that is key to making a product that everybody can love, right? Not just it's just for top tier action players. This is for everyone, 100% satisfaction. That's sick. He may be simple control. There's many things Clive can do. What do you focus on to make him such a fun to play? Yoshida-san, by focusing on the controls on Clive, we made sure that he's customizable. In particular, Final Fantasy 16 features the icons, and Clive can draw on the different iconic powers that he obtained. There are lots of different iconic abilities associated with each icon, and the individual player can create their own battle style for Clive for combining these abilities. And yes, guys, not everybody's going to have the same setup, same play style as everyone else. It's going to be completely different. Yes, there might be 1 or 2 players out there might have the same style as you, But not everybody's gonna have the same play style. Everybody's gonna have a different combination of the icons, iconic abilities, you name it. There are all kinds of options. So in exchange for not being able to control each of the characters, we focused on creating a lots of variation of Clive within Clive himself. That was the point we spent the most time and effort perfecting. And my golly, guys, I saw the 28-minute footage. You haven't seen it yet? Go watch it. It is insane. It looks great. What is your favorite thing Clive can do in battle? Yoshida-san. But there are so many I can't choose. Depending on the icons you select, Clive can fight defensively, extremely offensively, so I think is maybe the fun of discovering the exact Clive that fits your own playstyle. Question mark. The hideaway is obviously a very important location in the game as you return to it throughout. Why did you create this central hub? What does it bring to the game? Yoshida-san. For Final Fantasy XVI, we chose a game design that wasn't an open world as deliberate policy. We wanted to create a adventure that takes the characters all over the world, a story of saving the world. So, if you have a game where you work your way through different areas rather than around the open world game, you need some kind of hub area, which again, it makes sense. By making this base with the RPG features, where you can unlock, stock up on gear, and buy various items, it made sense that you would go out and venture a lot of different locations from this place. That's why I went with this format. It was really tough to create the visuals for the hideaway, wasn't it? Again. Now, Menagawa. Yes, it was tough. The performance took a extremely long time. Initially, we created a hideaway as a really intricate location, and we just ran away with it without stopping to consider the processing load. I remember that when we finally came to align everything, it was extremely difficult. So, yeah, this project was not easy. It sounds like they had a lot of things to work through, and you can tell that they worked their asses off. Yoshida-san, all that work means that all that work means that you first arrive at the hideaway. You start in such a beautiful location with rays of light streaming in. It was so hard to get the graphics and performance up to the level they're at now. Laughs. I imagine he's like laughing and go, "Oh boy." Just let us tell you the whole story, if we could. Menagawa was on. It was so bad that I wonder partway through whether we should just give up on the idea. But thanks to my team hard work, we managed to pull it together into something that looks great. And I'm glad he did. The hub area looks fantastic. I can't wait. Another great shot. One of the things I love is the active time lore system, which lets you get additional information about relevant characters in the world during cinematic. Why did you want to give players access to this information? Koji Fox. We have a very complex and intertwining story that spans many decades in the game, like 3 decades, guys. We're going through 3 decades. That's important. As you know, a lot of things happen in a span of time. Characters come in and out, lots of important events take place. If you try to cram all that into a cutscene, it's going to last hours and hours and break the gameplay. Yeah, that's going to be like, you'd be sitting there watching a movie at that point for like hours and hours and be like, okay, when can I play the game again? This is all good, but it's a lot to take in. There are a lot of names, a lot of events that happen that we're throwing at the player. Some people will be able to track it all, but there may be some people who are like, wait a minute, I don't recognize that name. If they get confused, we'll lose that player. We don't want to lose that player. Bingo. That's why. So by adding an active time lore system, where you can pause the cutscene at any time and get a list of all the important items that appear in the cutscene, you'll be able to refresh your memory. So let's just say you just got done doing stuff, and you decide to quit the game for a while. Like, let's say you're streaming it, like I will be. And you stop streaming it, you come back the next day, and you're kind of like, whoa, like, I need a refresher. You can always, like, pop up the next cutscene, or even just hit the button and just be like, oh, okay, so that's where we're at in the story. That's what we just interacted with, even during the cutscene. So this is great. Also an option for players who want to just know more about the world, again, without forcing it on them. I think that was really important. And that is, all you guys that complain about the lore, like, oh no, they got, a guy they can talk to, it gives you all the lore. It's like, is this really how the story is? No. It's about deep dive lores. It's for the lore nuts out there. If you're all about the lore, you're all about digging deep into it, that's for you. If you're like me and most people that want to just play the story and enjoy it, we can just do that. We don't have to dig into these active time lores and all that, right? The active time lore system. But I will. I'm definitely gonna break it down. At least look at a couple of them, and see how they are. Must be an enormous amount of writing. Koji Fox-san. It was, because we span many different decades. These entries will change depending on where you are in the game. Players will be able to see that as well. It's not just something static. They'll be able to see how it's changed. They can look at past entries and compare them to current ones to see what's different. And so there's a lot. There's a lot there. So yeah, this game's gonna have massive amount of lore. It's gonna be probably about as deep as Final Fantasy VII, without having books and movies and all that. It's gonna be right in this game. That's why a lot of people are begging for a DLC. It's like, no, we don't need a Final Fantasy 15 issue again. They're avoiding that mistake by just putting it all in the game. It's like, here, it's in the game. Don't worry about books and movies and DLCs and spin-off games. Another aspect that impressed me is how it makes the more fantastic aspects of Final Fantasy work in a more realistic style. How challenging was it to come together as so seamlessly? Menegato's before working on Final Fantasy 16, I worked on Final Fantasy 14, as well as the art direction for Final Fantasy 12. That's where that came from. You worked on Final Fantasy 12. I love Final Fantasy 12. I would say that style or the general direction for the graphics was quite similar to those games. What I've done with Final Fantasy 16 is really more of an extension of the same style I was working with before. So I wasn't too sure what the direction to take in terms of the overlook. So he goes, okay, so we're creating the games kind of like 12 and 14. Gotcha. That's basically what he's saying here. Having said that, since we now have the capability to depict much more, we did struggle with the characters. We didn't have the same kind of issues with the monsters, but the expression of characters were a particular challenge. Those of us that worked on the in-game assets found it really challenging to depict their expressions, which were more realistic than we previously worked on. In the end, we managed to achieve a good visual style thanks to the help and cooperation of a team working on the pre-rendered scenes. That's great. Overall, I would say that the most significant challenge was combining photorealism to more illustration feel, with the increased power we had to present things, finding the right balance and making sure it didn't look unnatural. Yoshida-san, probably the most challenge on a fundamental level was the Moogle. There's the Moogle. You little bugger. Yoshida-san, the development team was worried about that Moogles would be too difficult to create. It wouldn't fit the feel of the world. Our assistant producer was like, I don't care, just put them in the game. In the end, we took her advice, put one in the game. It was a lot more work than we expected. The biggest Moogle problem arose when we were implementing performance mode towards the end of development. Performance mode alters the appearance of polygons slightly, and we would particularly struggle with the Moogle. It ended up with less fur. Oh. Yikes. He laughs. Yoshida-san laughs. He goes, oh boy, yeah. It kind of ended up looking like a hedgehog. We were like, is this a Moogle? Eventually, we ended up putting this up processing specifically for the Moogle. So somehow, the Moogle was the most challenging thing, right? Whereas everyone was delighted by the Morble and created it right away. Yeah. They just talk back and forth. That's pretty funny. Another thing I love is how natural the dialogue sounds and how it flows through the scenes. How did you find this tone for the game? Koji Fox-san. Final Fantasy is a series that bounces around a lot. It has a lot of different settings, a lot of different characters, so you're going to have to get stuff that ends up being bombastic and a little over the top. That's not a bad thing. A lot of people appreciate that. But for this game, the theme is very dark. If we were to go over the top, it would distract them from the serious tone that we're going for. We didn't want that. Bingo. That's why we got the mature theme, the dark tone, the more grittiness, because they don't want to make it like well, wait a minute. Like, if this is such a serious game, then why is these characters just all chit chat, laughing up, and just acting like, oh, everything's fine? You know, that wouldn't make sense. We did want to have something that's felt very accessible and very natural. For example, shows like show Game of Thrones show that you can have a very high fantasy setting, but you don't need to go completely Renaissance fair with it. It still sounds unique and fantasy. It's not going so far over the top. It won't alienate some fans who don't want that type of speed. Again, I watched seasons 1 through 3. The fantasy is fantastic. The seriousness tone, the dark tone, fit in just fine. So I can see why they made that inspired by Game of Thrones, especially the first 3 seasons. Being able to record in English means that we have a lot of freedom to work with motion capture actors to make sure that we're getting things that felt very natural. Rather than just having one person talk at you for 10 tags of dialogue, you're having it's this back and forth that feels very natural. It's work on something that feels more like you're watching a movie or a drama rather than playing a game. Which, fantastic job of choosing to do English first, because now it's going to feel right at home, right? Because let's face it, Final Fantasy VII Remake has some great dialogue. It's one of the best dialogues they had in any game they've done. But you can tell that it was recorded in Japanese first, because some of the dialogue is fantastic. It's like, oh my goodness, but you can tell that if you listen to it in Japanese and you understand Japanese, it flows a lot more smoothly, right? There's not a whole lot of translation. Like, this kind of makes sense, but it kind of like something's a little off. With this, record in English first, so this is gonna be a lot easier for people like me. Are gonna like everything I hear so far. I'm like, this is great. This is great dialogue. So how challenging has it been to do something so new while still maintaining the identity of the Final Fantasy series? Yoshida-san. This is something that Sakaguchi-san, the father of Final Fantasy, and Kasase-san, there you go, they mentioned him, Final Fantasy brand manager, had both said to me, Final Fantasy is whoever the director making the latest installment thinks is the best game, the best story at the time. If they create a game with the points in mind, then it's a Final Fantasy. So there's no need to feel constrained by what comes before. Since they said to me, I didn't really feel like this was a particular challenge. Of course, we hesitated and mulled things over. I wouldn't say it was challenging. Once we had decided on something, then it was all that mattered. And absolutely, if Sakaguchi-san and Katase-san say, hey look, Final Fantasy is whatever the director making his latest installment thinks is best for the game and best story at the time, go for it. Like, that's what we done, right? There you go, guys. Sakaguchi and Katase both just told Yoshida's like, hey, it's whatever you guys think of Final Fantasy is, go for it. Run with it. It's your game. Don't listen to the outside noise. Don't look back at the last game. Focus on what you think is the Final Fantasy game. And they done it. This is great. I love reading this. I'm glad I'm covering this, guys. Does any of this come to mind for you, Minigrado-san? Okay. Well, since Final Fantasy XVI is the latest installment franchise, I think for the art and graphics team, we're all just working hard as we could to achieve all we could do to achieve top-end visuals. With so many other great games coming out, we were desperate to reach that same standard. Excellent. There's always a question of balance, what to polish, what to compromise on. Everyone has their own views on which part those should be. I would say that bringing all that together is the most challenging part, although this is the same for all games, not just Final Fantasy 16. Bingo. That's how game development is, guys. Right here. This is game development. What I'm reading on the screen here. Not just for Final Fantasy 16, it's for all games. They have to make compromises. They have to make decisions, hard decisions, challenging decisions on what they want their games to be. Visualization, graphics, resolution, all that. Right here, this is absolutely, I'm glad to be honest. People need to read this. I'll have it in the links to the description. I'll have it in the links to the description below. As always, I will keep reading. Having said that, because we had the ability to expect so much more than this time, As I mentioned earlier, the balancing was all the more challenging. If you go overboard, you can end up with a single asset acquiring outrageous resources. Absolutely, Yoshida-san. Absolutely. We had so much more freedom than ever before, so we really struggled to find the right balance. That's Minagawa-san. Yoshida-san. At the end of the day, it isn't the most challenging thing, but making this latest installment in the Final Fantasy series in this day and age, money. Laughs. Yeah, it's probably the development cost. They're not wrong. Like they said in the previous interview, I wish I didn't cover. He did say that for Square alone, it's cost them over $100 million to develop their top AAA games. So just let that sink in, folks. This is Square Enix we're talking about. It's costing them over $100 million to create their AAA games. That's like Final Fantasy VII Remake Trilogy, Final Fantasy XVI. We'll see what else they have to say. Well, I tried not to think about laughs. It was too scary. So overall, what would you say you have been the most challenging thing about creating Final Fantasy XVI? Yoshida-san, the most challenging thing, well, I suppose, it would have to be the fact that we have been starting working on development. We were a little behind the standard of other global AAA games in terms of technology. As a result, we had to work on developing the game at the same time as increasing our overall knowledge and skill with the technology and leveling up the team. While we were working on development, the rest of the world wasn't standing still. They continued to evolve. I think that keeping all those elements in play and still managing to make the game land was really the most difficult aspect. And they're not wrong. Square's got a lot of catching up to do, right? A lot of these AAA Japanese companies, these third-party companies, they got a lot of catching up to do against like the first-party games, right? Those are taking a full advantage of the PS5. Like they're just starting to get into it. Like Creative Business Unit 3, Creative Business Unit 1, they are just getting into the meat and potatoes of the PS5. So yeah, the most difficult aspects was all this. I appreciate them being honest. Minagawa-san. Looking back, I think that it would be the sheer volume of content. When I first joined the project, I heard that it wasn't going to be open world, so I approached it fairly casually, thinking, oh, surely they wouldn't get that bad, but it was ridiculous. There were lots of people working on the game, far more than any other project I worked on, which means balancing even more aspects, such as different things different people wanted to create, as well as the cost. But then, when it came to tying everything together, the volume and quality of content was just off the charts. And we see it. Like, every trailer, every state of play, every PAX East, everything they showed this game off. Yeah, you definitely see it. Yoshida-san, I suppose consistency of the development was the most challenging thing. It took quite some time for us to find that consistent standard. There were a lot of assets that turned out we couldn't use, even after they'd been created. Once that baseline was established, I think the development actually moved quite quickly, but it was really tough until we reached that point. Obviously, Final Fantasy is a series that has a very passionate fan base. Did you feel that weight of expectations when making this game? If so, how did it affect you? Yoshida-san. I'd be lying if I said there was no pressure. Right now, with the release fast approaching, I honestly have to say I'm feeling the pressure a little more. I don't blame you, man, because this game, it's got a lot riding on it ever since Final Fantasy 15 had mixed results. Like, I feel for this team. Like, all the pressure's on them right now. Having said that, Final Fantasy's fan base isn't just made up of fans of the entire series. I say a lot of passionate fans are passionate about specific titles in the series. For example, someone might love Final Fantasy VII, while someone else is all about Final Fantasy IX. Yet another person thinks Final Fantasy XII is the absolute best. All these people have different expectation hopes for what they want to see in a Final Fantasy game. Absolutely. And some people who think it has to be a turn-based game. There are those fans who think the recent Final Fantasy games seem a bit retro and outdated. I don't find myself playing them these days. Our decision to make Final Fantasy XVI a real action game means there will be some people who will say it's not a Final Fantasy game if it's not. If it's not turn-based, if it's just not possible to fulfill everyone's expectations of the same game. And he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. I do, of course, feel bad about not being able to give some people the game they want. I do feel that pressure. Having said that, Final Fantasy has now reached 35 years of history. By shifting to real-time action for a rain line, numbered Final Fantasy game. I hope that young developers will come and make a Final Fantasy games. Will make Final Fantasy games in the future can look back at Final Fantasy 16 and think this kind of Final Fantasy is valid as well. We can have more freedom to create this game as we want. I think that's really important for Fossler, especially if Final Fantasy is to reach its 40th and 50th anniversaries as well. If you ask me how I deal with pressure, I guess all I can do is come out here and speak to the people honestly about the game we created and what kind of game it is. That's all I can do, right? Just like Paxi, just like State of Play and stuff like that. Like, he's just being honest. In these interviews, he's being honest. Like, this is what I want developers to be. I want them to be honest about things and be like, look, we created a game that we created. We know we're gonna have a lot of people some people are not gonna be happy with it, but we're being bold. So we're just weeks away from the launch of Final Fantasy 16. What elements of the game are you most proud of? Yoshida-san, I have such respect for the development team for seeing through the end and completing the development of the game. Respect for Square Enix for approving its budget. Aha. Also, I am proud of the fact that we supported by such a great fan base with so many people around the world, including fans, journalists, and gamers at large, saying they're looking forward to playing Final Fantasy 16. Managawa-san, I completely agree. Same here. I am super hyped for this game. I cannot wait to play it. I'm gonna play the demo. You guys know me. This interview has me even more hyped. Just knowing how much love, passion, struggles, challenges they had to overcome for this game is mind-boggling. I've been making games for over 30 years now. When I first started, each individual person's role in development of one game was really significant. Your work occupies such a large portion of the final game, but for Final Fantasy 16, the work I could do as an individual was insignificant. I needed a team of many people to really unleash their energies, abilities, otherwise we couldn't have created a game of this level. Everything is supported by the work of this team. They're what I'm most proud of. And now it's time for the players to play what we created. If they enjoy it, then I'm sure I'll be delighted to see that, which will give me a sense of pride as well. Koji Fox-san, I'm really proud of the voice acting. I think we did a great job, and when I say we, I mean the voice actors did all the work. I was kind of there providing them with the lines. He's laughing. We have an idea what a character is going to be like when we write it, but when you give it to the director, it really comes to life. Our cast is amazing, and they did a great job. Both Yoshida-san and Managawa-san mentioned I'm also proud, very proud of this team I worked with. If it wasn't just me translating the game, a lot of people think that it was just a one-man job at a lot of time. And I actually had all these people supporting me. I had a great team in John Taylor, Phil Bright, over in London, Ollie Chance, and Morgan Rustin. Just to be able to come together to create this great thing was something I'm proud of. And the third thing, I'm not proud of my bad puns. There's a lot of good bad puns in this game. He laughs. Finally, just a quick one. Who's your favorite icon? Yoshida-san, Ifrit. Managawa-san. Same. Ifrit. Koji Fox-san, Titan. Many thanks to Yoshida-san, Managawa-san, and Koji Fox-san for answering our question. Final Fantasy 16 is just out in just a few short weeks. The game launches for PS5 on June 22nd, 2023. There are 3 available editions to order, all of which offers the following order bonuses: Braveheart, the Weapon DLC, Case 6 Charm, and Game Item Accessory that boosts your guild. Here's a rundown of the editions, yada yada. Alright guys, that's it. That is it. We are here for Final Fantasy 16. I would love to hear what you guys have to think. What you guys have to say and think about the interview we just went over. I am more hyped for this game. I am more excited for this game. Like, Creative Business Unit 3 worked their asses off. They're going to make a stellar of a game. This game could rival one of the best Final Fantasy games out there. And guess what? I'm a big Final Fantasy VII fan. Me saying that means something. I cannot wait for Rebirth, but this game here sounds so intriguing, so epic, so awesome. I can't wait to get my hands on this. And just 3 weeks in one day. I just cannot wait. So let me know what you guys' hype levels for this game. Let me know what you guys think of all this. I would love to hear what you guys have to think of Final Fantasy 16 as an order. As a whole, are you guys going to order it? Are you guys going to get day one? Are you guys going to wait for a sale? What is your hype level for today? As of right now, I would love to hear what you have to say. Other than that, be safe out there. Be nice to each other. Have a wonderful day, wonderful night. If you're in the heat, stay cool. It is hot here. Like, my room is completely warm with a fan. So it's like, oh. Anyways, you guys be safe out there. Be nice to each other. Keep on keeping on. And I'll catch you all on the next video. Take care.